Om Sehna Bhavatu Sehnau Bhunaktu Sehviriyam Karvavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we're starting a new chapter today, chapter number 26, page 201. This is about I-ness and my-ness. So, in other words, it talks about ego, the ego that holds us back from knowing the reality. So, I intend to read this chapter, and if you have questions, we can stop. Otherwise, we continue reading this chapter to complete. The feeling of thee and thine is the outcome of knowledge. I and mine comes from ignorance. That's the opening statement of Sri Ramakrishna, that if we indulge in entertaining the thought of I and mine, then we are in ignorance. The author of Tattvabodha now begins a new current of thought. He said that there are 3 bodies and they can be divided into 5 sheets. He discussed the 5 sheets. The self has been enveloped by these 5 sheets. If the self could reject these 5 sheets one by one, it would remain in its own glory. As in Sri Ramakrishna's famous example of peeling off the scale of an onion. Unfortunately, however, the problem is with the identification. Sri Ramakrishna explains this. The feeling of I and mine has covered the reality. Because of this, we do not see the truth. Attainment of Chaitanya, divine consciousness, is not possible without the knowledge of Advaita or non-duality. Please stop me whenever you have any difficulty in understanding. This chapter is fairly very simple. The 5 sheets have no independent existence. They cannot exist without Atman. Moreover, the Atman alone is real, while these are superimposition in the absolute sense. This is the fundamental knot of the Advaita. So where lies the problem? It is in false identity. After ignorance envelops the self, it projects the subtle and gross bodies. The bodies, as we have seen, are product of ignorance. Permission and combination of the 3 qualities of ignorance, sattva, rajas, and tamas, have made these 3 bodies. So they are inert. The light of the self falls on the causal and subtle bodies and eliminates them. The intellect then begins to confusion. It thinks that it is the self. The mind thinks it is the self, and the body thinks it is the self. This identity is the fundamental mistake, which leads to suffering. We are the Atman. declare all scriptures unequivocally, but we think we are the body, mind, or the intellect. We think we are the doers and enjoyers. We think we are the achievers. To remove this false identification is the purpose of all spiritual endeavor. This has been dealt with within this chapter. Even if one has the idea that the house, ornaments, and so on are one's own, they do not become the self. So also, if one has the idea like, this is my body, my vital breath, my mind, my intellect, my knowledge, and so forth, they do not become the self. Give up the identification. Swamiji says, do not identify yourself with anything. Hold your mind free. All this that you see, the pains and the miseries, are but the necessary condition of this world. Poverty and wealth and happiness are but momentary. They do not belong to our real nature at all. Our nature is far beyond misery and happiness, beyond every object of the senses, beyond the imagination, and yet we must go on working all the time. Misery comes through attachment, not through the work. As soon as we identify ourselves with the work we do, we feel miserable. But if we do not identify ourselves with it, we do not feel that misery. If a beautiful picture belonging to the another is burnt, man does not generally become miserable. But when his own picture is burnt, is how miserable he feels. Why? Both were beautiful pictures, perhaps copies of the same original. But in one case, very much more misery is felt than in other. It is because in one case he identifies himself with the picture and not in the other. This I and mine causes the whole misery. With the sense of possession comes selfishness, and selfishness brings on misery. Every act of selfishness or thought of selfishness makes us attached to something, and immediately we are made slaves. Each wave in the chitta that says I and mine immediately puts a chain around us and makes us slaves. And the more we say I and mine, the more slavery grows, the more misery increases. Sri Ramakrishna says, he who has attained this knowledge of Brahman is Jivan Mukta, liberated while living in the body. He rightly understands that the Atman and the body are two separate things. After realizing God, one does not identify the Atman with the body. These two are separate, like the kernel and the shell of the coconut. When its milk dries up, the Atman moves, as it were, within the body. When the milk of worldly mindedness has dried up, one gets self-knowledge. Then one feels that Atman and body are two separate things. So I hope you are getting the point clear. To me, this chapter is not very difficult to grasp. So I'm continue reading until you ask me a question if there is a doubt. What begets egoism? Knowledge or ignorance? It is only the humble man who attains knowledge. In a low place, rain water collects. It runs down from mount. So this is the question one can ask. What brings us the ego? Is our so-called knowledge that we collect, or is it ignorance? What brings the ego? A man achieves neither knowledge nor liberation as long as he has ego. He comes back again and again to the world. The calf bellows, Hamba, Hamba. That is I. That is why it suffers such agony. The butcher slaughters it, and the shoemaker makes shoe from its hide. Besides, its hide is used for the drum, which is beaten mercilessly. Still no end to its misery. At long last, carding machine is made from its entrails. While carding the cotton, the machine makes the sound tuhu tuhu, that is tau tau, and the poor calf is released from it all suffering. It no longer says hamba hamba, but repeats tau tau. The calf says, as it were, "O God, thou art the doer, and I am nothing. Thou art the operator, I am machine. Thou art everything." Egoism is born of a false identification. We are proud of our physical beauty, but that is so impermanent that a little ailment may destroy it. If physical appearance was everything, all the film personalities of the world would have been the happiest people, and they would have been called blissful. Unfortunately, several film personalities have committed suicide, and they too suffer endlessly. Life is not a mere skin-deep philosophy. A little ailment, a small germ, and all the beauty will be gone. Aging is yet another terror. As we become old, the skin becomes loose, muscle begin to hang, and we look horrible. This is the body. Finally, a single natural calamity and all our life is gone. Our wealth, of our property, everything that we boost will go the moment tornado, typhoon, or cyclone hits. This is all that the physical world has in its store for us. Then there is the pride of learning. I am so and so, I am doctor, I am engineer, a PhD. I have so many degrees. This is yet another false identification. If I think I am big, there will be someone will be bigger tomorrow. All our so-called learning, intelligence, capacity to achieve things, and so on are there until the body lasts. If something happens to the body somewhere, we are undone. If something happens to the mind, everything is gone. It is said of a great scholar who was famous for his brilliant memory that he lost everything in an accident. Alzheimer is taking its toll heavily all the world over. Such is the glory of a memory. Such is life. Pinning our hopes and life on evanescent things is what is called misery. We are all doing that. Holy Mother Sri Sharda Devi says, people suffer endless misery on account of their egoism. And last they say, not I, it is thou, O God, it is thou. This is where religion begins. A devotee asked Holy Mother once, man cannot do anything by his individual effort. God is doing everything through him. Holy Mother Sri Sharda Devi replied, yes, that is true, but is one conscious of this always? Blinded by egoism, people think themselves to be independent agent in regard to action. They do not depend on God. He protects one who relies on him. There is another type of egoism. There is a Buddhist story of a rich woman. This rich woman was famous as a pious, calm, loving, and gentle person. Her maidservant was poor but saintly. Once this servant decided to test the truth of her mistress. Goodness, she came late for her work. The mistress scolded her. The next day, the same thing happened. On third day, the rich lady, famous for gentleness, beat the maid with the stick. We are pious due to social compulsion. Swami Vivekananda therefore exhorts everyone to give up false identification. He says, what can be greater giver of peace than renunciation? A little temporal worldly good is nothing in comparison with eternal good. No doubt of that. What can bring greater strength than Tattvabodha, absolute purity of mind? It is indeed true that all other kinds of knowledge are but non-knowledge in comparison with self-knowledge. But I ask, how many are there in the world fortunate enough to gain that Tattvaguna? How many in this land of Bharata, how many have that noble heroism which can renounce all, shaking off the idea of I and mine? How many are blessed enough to possess that far sight of wisdom which makes the reality, which makes the earthly pleasure appear to be but vanity of vanities? Where is that broad-hearted man who is apt to forget even his own body in meditating over the beauty and glory of the divine? In the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the Lord has discussed this weakness of human beings in detail. Conclusion of this chapter. Though we identify ourselves with the 5 sheaths or 3 bodies and remain bound to the world, we cannot be any one of these. While all these undergo birth, death, and so on, the Atman changeless. The sun can never be confused for a little drop of water on which it shines. So the sages and scriptures warn us repeatedly not to waste our precious lives. The idea of reading this chapter is that it talks about a simple fact that without our knowledge, unconsciously, we claim to be doer, enjoyer, and that comes out of our ego. And as it says, what is ego? Ego is nothing but ignorance. Ignorance of the fact that these 3 bodies or 5 sheaths are only the covers, only the different state of consciousness. The real thing is the Atman, or the consciousness, without which neither 3 bodies nor 5 sheaths can exist. So it is not only these 3 bodies or 5 sheaths, but anything and everything that we can see or perceive do not exist in reality. It is only the appearance. It is only the perception of our mind. And mind is powered by our consciousness, Atman. And therefore it brings us to the same point of, of acknowledging the Atman as the real eternal truth. The sooner the better that we do not claim to be a doer or enjoyer. That is a very little step for us to drop ego. It is when we identify ourselves with our position, status, and whatever that we claim to have gained is nothing but pampering of ego. So if there is no further doubt on this point that we have read, we could continue reading. Do you want to have any question on this, what we read so far today? All right. So then we continue the next chapter, chapter 27, the Atman. What Brahman is cannot be described in words. Somebody once said that everything in the world has been made impure, like food that has touched the tongue, and that Brahman alone remains undefiled. The meaning of this is all scriptures and the holy books, the Vedas, Puranas, and Tantras, and so forth, may be said to have been defiled because their contents have been uttered by the tongues of man. But what Brahman is, no tongue has yet been able to describe. Therefore, Brahman is still undefiled. One cannot describe in words the joy of play and communion with the Sat Chit Ananda. He alone knows. He has realized it. So that's a statement from Ramakrishna. So there is a philosophy which says, mainly the Sankhya philosophy says, this what we call the Brahman or the unmanifested consciousness. It is unknowable. It is unknowable, which means we can go on reading different literatures and describe it as best as we can, but it is still falls short of reality. It is something that can never be described, and therefore it remains unknowable. Whereas Vedanta, the non-duality philosophy, believes that it is possible to know, and it is possible to know here and now. How? Moment you realize that you are not this body, you are not these covers, you are not the world that you see. What remains? You are still there. No one can deny that we exist. We don't need a proof to prove that we exist. So when I say I exist, what is that I? So if you realize that the I, it does not stand for this body, I does not stand for this mind or intellect, then what is that I? That whatever it is, that is consciousness, that is Atman, that is Brahman. A little boy or a girl at their early age would say, I am boy, or I am so and so, or I am a girl, or I am so and so. That I am refers to consciousness, refers to the Brahman or God or whatever name we call. I am does not belong to the body or mind or intellect. So when we introduce ourselves by I am, whatever names that you have, name is to your body, but I am does not belong to the body. I am is the reality. That is Atman. And it is constant. It does not undergo any change. You might have noticed a little child would call I am, whatever his name. Even when he grows, he will still say I am his name. At the time of death, he will say I am so and so. So I am is something that is constant. And that is the consciousness. That is the original, eternal consciousness. And here, this chapter is about knowing that I am. Atman. After discussing the different states of being and different bodies, the truth is being told now. What is the truth? Vedantians follow the method of Adhyarapa and Aparvada to describe the truth. It is possible to pinpoint the Atman? No, says the sages. The Atman is self-revealing. It is not an object to be known. It is the eternal subject. All that the sages do not do is point out where we are erring, where we have fixed our ego wrongly, and show us the way. So you see here, it's trying to explain what is Atman. You can have only the pointers. You can only show the path, whether they are sages or scriptures. It only can give you the indication as to what is Atman. But ultimately, it is something that one has to experience personally. The Vedantians, first of all, follow the course of superimposition in explaining to us the wrong route we have taken. They say that Brahman is enveloped by Maya, and thus three cosmic and individual bodies, causal, subtle, and gross, have appeared. We are identifying ourselves with our gross bodies now in the waking state. Having shown us the wrong course we have taken and the wrong place we have reached in our journey, the guidepost, Guru, tells us to go back to where we started. This going backward is Aparvada. From the gross body through the subtle and causal, we are told to reach the truth. The truth is that Atman alone is real and all else is unreal. This Atman is Brahman. So here, what is worth noticing is that this Brahman is enveloped by Maya. So the absolute truth, the reality, is enveloped, it's covered by what is known as Maya. Now, what is Maya? It is nothing but our ignorance. Yeah, it is ignorance. And what is the cause of that ignorance? There is no cause. If there was no cause, if there was a cause, there cannot be ignorance. Ignorance is something that you can never pinpoint. When did it come? When did it start? We can go back into regression and check our past lives, hundreds and thousands and millions of lives that we have lived. Ignorance was still there. If there was no ignorance, we would not be here today. We would have been free person, free Atman. We would have been liberated. It is because of that ignorance that we are still here. We exist as this body, mind, intellect. And that ignorance is Maya. And that Maya, the job is to hide or cover up the reality. The moment we drop the ignorance, moment we transcend the ignorance, we get to know our real identity. When you have knowledge or experience of real identity, there is no ignorance. The word may continue, the appearance may continue, but person who realizes that I am the Atman, for that person, everything is no different than the Atman. It is everything is the same consciousness, same energy, same Brahman. So for that liberated person, that self-realized person he can only say that there is separation. Atman is the underlining power, the energy, the cover, the consciousness. Everything else exists because of that power, because of that energy. And therefore, the matter and energy are separate. But for us, the matter is the consciousness. In other words, the body is, the mind is, the intellect is, the world is real to us. Because for us, we cannot have that experience of separate. Atman is separate than the matter, or energy is separate from the matter. So now we reading the page 209. There is one God who remains hidden in all beings as in the innermost self. He is all-pervasive and the ruler of our actions. He is the indweller of all beings, the witness, the consciousness of all, the one alone and beyond attributes. So you see the different phrases are used: Atman, God, Brahman, consciousness, energy. Just because you can never describe that energy, that what is the cause of everything, the cause of every existence. It is just not possible to describe it in words. The words are limited. Therefore, different phrases are used. Such is the Atman. The Upanishad declares that time and again, that is the one, the Atman, which appears as many. It is the same self that is in all beings. If I know my Atman, I know everything, because it is the same self that pervades and has become everything. The Brahmadaratya Upanishad declares that the truth with force, that Brahman which is known directly is the same as the self which is in all beings. So this is the statement when a person is liberated, when a person is self-realized. Then this is the statement. For us, it is only a statement. It's not our actualization, our wisdom, our realization. That Brahman, which is known directly, is the same as the self, which is in all beings. Page 210. What then is the Atman? It is of the nature of being. It is nature of being, knowledge and bliss absolute. Sat Chit Ananda. So now here in this text, it is word knowledge is used in different literature. It is Sat Chit Ananda. Sat is the existence. Isness of is Sat. Yeah? Chit is the consciousness. Chit is the awareness. Chit is the wisdom. And the bliss is something that you can never explain. Bliss is something that it is not happiness, it is not pleasure, it is not satisfaction, it is not fulfillment. The bliss is much beyond all that. And that bliss is only you can experience, you cannot describe. What is bliss? Whatever that gives you pleasure or happiness is time-bound. It is the bliss which has no time and space. It's timeless. So the Atman is that Sat Chit Ananda. Now these are only the attributes once again, because it's beyond description. You can never, it is the nature of the Atman is Sat Chit Ananda. Existence, consciousness, bliss, or in other words, isness of ease, awareness and bliss. So being aware, as we all the time remind ourselves, being aware is to recognize that we are the consciousness. We have to be aware that we are the awareness. You see, we have to be aware that we are the awareness. And that is why most people talk about that people, they spend the lifetime seeking something to know what they already are. They are what they are seeking. It is just, and that is why Sri Shankara and Ramana Maharshi, Nisargadatta Maharaj, and all of them believe that you cannot describe that eternal truth, that absolute truth. So the only effort we can do is to realize what we are not. And what we are not, and yet we are. And that what makes us to exist is what is consciousness, is what is Brahman. So all that our senses that can perceive, whatever objects, they are all objects made of matter or combination of matter and energy. But the energy per se alone or spirit alone cannot be described, it can only be experienced. Experienced through your meditations or your sadhana of being into samadhi, when that reality is revealed. It's revealed. So for that person knows that all that what my eyes can, what my senses can perceive are the objects. And that's not reality. Reality is that I am. I am is the reality. We will continue reading this page 210 from next time, because this is the highlight of this book, Atman, consciousness. We have to be 100% sure that we understand what is it. And not only understand, but contemplate. And after contemplation, if we are convinced about that, every moment be aware that I am that awareness. How many times that we can go on reading this, but if it is not practiced, this will remain only a knowledge. How do you practice? As in this example given, a lady who apparently very gentle, very kind, very helpful, but when testing time came, her true nature showed up. That is our testing time for all of us. At such testing time, if we still realize that there is no other, it is the same consciousness that I have, is pervades everywhere. And therefore there are no others. Only I am exists. I am.
Acharya, is that the true nature or the true ignore? Momentary lapses which happen in your day-to-day life.
Please repeat, as you were not audible.
You were giving
No.
Patience, and she you can you hear me?
There is some internet lapse or something.
I just need to know what is the true nature. that momentary lapse or the other, I mean, very aptly pointed out that it is more of social compulsions.
Yeah. The moment we lose the awareness.
We are pious due to social compulsions.
Yeah. That
strong
happens. That happens to all of us because we are not in awareness. We are not aware all the time that I am that consciousness. I am that energy. And if I am that, everything else is the same. Only that person, only the person who realizes that oneness would have that kindness, the empathy, all the virtues. Truly speaking, only that person has. Otherwise, all of us who are still not self-realized, what is self-realized? Self-realized is self, capital self, the consciousness. I am that. That's the realization. Only that person will realize that everything is the same consciousness, and there is no need of any anger or ego or attachment or desires or greed. All will evolve. Everything will evaporate. And it is not that you are evaporating. It is not that you are doing it. It happens. That's the power of that experience, the power of that revelation that happens. It is only until the state of Turiya, until this fourth state, people for a momentary, they will lose that awareness and can have, there are many, many examples in our scriptures where great sages and rishis who were considered to be self-realized people, but they lost their temper. They were succumbed to their anger. They had ego. There were shortfalls only because they were not in the pure awareness all the time. So if you read Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna says that out of millions and millions, only one reaches me. Who is that one? And that is why here the question comes about ego. Who does the knowledge bring the ego, or is the ignorance brings the ego? And it says that the person who is like absolutely innocent, I would use the word innocent, who does not have any worldly knowledge, for example, who has no status, who has nothing to claim that he is the doer or he or she has the certain achievement. They have no ego at all. It is the one who claim to have reached certain positions, certain academical achievements and knowledge and social status may have ego. Because that ego is something that happens to without our knowledge. We do not know that we are our talk, our behavior, our body language can project the ego, knowingly or unknowingly. Only sadhana, as I said last time, only sadhana that we need to do right now is purity. Purity of thoughts, purity of mind, purity of our behavior, purity in our approach, our intention, our emotions. That purity alone can take us further. If you go on reading such books about whatever Upanishads and Vedas or Gita, you spend a couple of hours every day reading it. But rest of the time, your behavior, your activity, your indulgence is not according to what you read. then that reading has no point. So slowly but surely, one has to adopt lifestyle of that wisdom based on what you gain as a knowledge, and through the meditation, whatever your intuitions, your angels, I would call my angel, whatever your angels guides you to do. All of us have the spirit body around us all the time. All the time. All of us have that spirit body, that angel. Their job is to guide us. Or we don't listen to them. How do we listen to them? By doing meditation. When you are in stillness and silence, and then you get certain gut feelings, intuitions. Those are the messages that are being conveyed to you. And that's why contemplation is required. Contemplation is nothing but you are referring the subject to your angel body, your spirit body. You are opening a dialogue between what you call yourself and with your spirit body. So we're speaking about Brahman or God or consciousness, but there are levels. You don't move to. Even in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that you worship different gods. That's all okay. Deities, that's all okay. Ganesha, Parvati, whatever different gods and goddesses. Ultimately, it is that Krishna that he says, everything comes to me ultimately. But it does not mean that you come directly to me. You can go through demigods. And so the first step is to our spirit angels or spirit guides. They guide us. And that happens only when you achieve some amount of purity of mind, purity of thoughts. Because otherwise your impurity brings obstacle. It creates obstacles. You cannot hear the voice or cannot get the images or messages from your angels, your guide. And that is the starting point of purity, that you engage everything. And all this is combination. The purity comes only because you are aware of bringing the purity. If you're not aware and if you continue doing the rat race and, living the life as we are right now, then nothing will change. Everything will go on. We probably take further few million years, million lives more until we come to that realization. Everybody realizes, every single soul has to go back home. Every single soul goes back home, now or later. So the choice is us, now or later. Now or in next birth, or few hundred years, a few hundred births, or few thousand births, or few million births. We do not know.
So, Acharya, I feel that when somebody understands the Satchit Anand or maybe realizes it, so it may either lead to inaction, non-decision making, or it would lead to a state where one has immense openings of his potential and does whatever. So now another question, that if people, they say that I spontaneously took the decision and the decisions go wrong, so is it that they were guided, or is it that they were not guided by their angel spirits?
So there are two things, Aditi. One is that self-realization. And as I said, that person, there are few who we think they are self-realized. For them, the word continued. Word did not change. Everything else existed as it is. But there, because the word is nothing but the projection of your mind. Yeah. So if I think Aditi is an excellent person, for me, Aditi is excellent person. What makes it excellent? It's my mind. My mind has an experience. My mind has interactions that gives me impression of the person is excellent. Yeah. Now, the person may not be 100% excellent because somebody may have different experience. But that, for me as a person, everything else, so that is why these personalities who self-realized, they did not see any change. They said, it does not, to my word, it does not exist. In my word, everything is peaceful, everything is loving, everything is harmonious. There is no disharmony, there is no violence. It may happen, and if it is happening, it's part of divine design. There is a purpose for it. We fail to understand the purpose because we are short-sighted. We do not have idea of in time to come that may bring about some changes, and the things may turn out to be for good for people, good for the location. We have no idea. We do not know at this point of time because our faculty of perception is limited. Coming to this voice of angel, it does not misguide you for sure. However, if you do not grasp it, do not read it in a right sense, then there are chances that you may have adverse experience. The decision taken on spot and turn out to be a failure or a wrong, as I said, it could be wrong at that point of time, but at long time and in time to come, eventually it works out beneficial, works out in your favor, works out to be good for you in the sense of evolution.
Right.
You see, the trouble is for us, we check everything here and now. We think that if I am doing this work, I must have a result right now. Yeah, the response should come intensely. There are things that take time. That it's like a farmer plowing a seed. So many other factors required: the sunlight, the rain, the water, the quality of the soil, his work on looking after the, all put together, then comes the germination and the plant grows. So it does take time. But it's right there and then, if you are expecting some results, it may not happen. And also it depends on how you've taken it. For instance, I do not know, I have mentioned this to you before, but there are signs that angels or spirit guides displays to you. Now, if you are not in the awareness of it, if you do not catch it, you miss it. But if you are in awareness, if you are in constantly believe, have faith, have and trust that I have the protecting shield around me, and that is in form of my spirit guide, my angels, who are nobody else other than your well-wishers, or it could be your well-wishers who left their bodies and they are in the other frequency. They're taking care of you. Or there can be an assigned spirit guide to you. There are different hierarchies. So First and foremost, you need to have some amount of trust or faith on it, believe it in, and then you experience it. And if you experience it only when you are in awareness that there is a possibility that I'm being guided. I'm being guided. Check yourself. Find a time to ask yourself that you are driving a car or somebody is driving you to different, and you think there will be no parking available. You think there will be parking problem. And suddenly you say, no, my parking is surely there. I will find it. How many times you have found parking like that? How does that happen? How does that happen?
So we assign that to the cognitive thing that we
You-
could think this way.
You
So because
first
we
and
thought
foremost,
so, we got it.
you have to
Yeah.
have a thought positive that I have my parking available.
Right, right.
You are giving that signals. You are giving that your wish to your guide, to your spirit body, to
Right.
help you, to find it for you, and it is manifested. But if to starting itself you say, oh, I will have problems, I will not find it, you will not find it.
Right, that's right.
This is just an example. Likewise, in every field of life, this is how it works. Different names, self-confidence, I call it help from my spirit guide. But first and foremost is that you must have some amount of knowledge and trust.
Right.
So we will continue reading that chapter of Atman next time.
Yes, Guruji.
By the time end of this year, I like to complete this book and take next one. Will be next year.
Yes, Acharya. Thank you.
Om. Asato ma satgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityurma amritam gamaya loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Samasta loka sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, God, for giving us air to breathe. Thank you, God, for giving us water to drink. Thank you, God, for giving us sun for energy. Thank you, God, for giving us food to eat. Thank you, God, for giving us good health and happiness. Thank you, God, for giving us positivity. Thank you, God, for giving us all that we deserve. Thank you, God, for your love, your protection, your guidance, your blessings. Thank you, God, for the existence. Thank you for giving me a chance to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you, Acharya.
I'm
Thank you so
gonna.
much, Acharya.
I'm going to forward you some quote today, which I wanted to speak today, but we didn't have time. But I will forward you. If you find time today or tomorrow, please try to read it and contemplate on that.
Yes, Acharya, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you
a
so
great
much.
day. Thank you very
Wish you
much.
the same, Acharya. Thank you.
Jai Dev.